Matthew's reading. The same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the lake. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat there, while the crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, "Listen, a sower went out to sow. And as they sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen."
Let anyone with ears listen. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Did we really hear that? Jesus told a number of parables, and parables were often told from this space of wonder and ponder, inviting the listener into this bigger space, using stories based around earthly everyday activity to help grow a greater sense of who God was and is and what God is trying to do in the world. Parables were told to help people capture the awesomeness of God with this greater sense of beyond, but also with this great sense of that which is near, that which is hopeful, and that which is possible. They were told to help one examine oneself. They were told to help people reassess what they thought about God and how they might change in that reassessment. I think just about all the parables, this might be, of all the parables, this might be the only one that has an explanation. There aren't too many with explanations. And I didn't want to jump to the explanation because I wanted to give you the chance to wonder and to ponder. So today, I want you to come. We're going to have these 9 verses again. And I'm going to invite you at the end of those 9 verses to share what this passage is helping break open within you. Thanks, Ross.
That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the lake. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat there, while the whole crowd stood on the beach. He told them many things in parables, saying, "Listen, a sower went out to sow. And as they sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen.
So I've got time for about 3 or 4 responses at most. I wonder, what's it sprouting in you? What are you wondering? What are you pondering?
The environment that you live in will affect how you develop.
Good, thank you, David. So David just shared, for those at home, the environment that you live in will affect how you develop. Thank you.
I said to Carol last night, a sensible sower would throw most of the seed in the paddock.
Yes.
So most of it would not have gone on the path or in the bushes. So the gospel is meant for broad acceptance. And only a minority maybe miss it out.
Thanks, John. So for those of you who are at home or didn't hear, what John's saying is that a sensible sower would know to sow into the paddock. So for the seed to fall on many different surfaces is saying something about the sower. Is that what you're saying, John?
Yeah, it wouldn't happen deliberately. It'll be an accident.
It'd be an accident, perhaps. All right, it'd be an accident that had happened on the path. All right.
The thought that puzzled me, Graham, was that it says a sower went out to sow, and as they sowed, it's a sower, and then it's they. What's happened here?
Oh, it's a pronoun. They. I think in the English, that's me probably, because I think it might, in the translation, it might have come out as he, but I like to be inclusive. So it's just an inclusive language.
I just became a bit inclusive and said they means all of us are responsible for sowing.
There you go. So Ross has changed the they to mean all of us. There you go. Thank you, Ross. the pulpit's here if you need it. No, thank you. I like it. One more? Oh, there's someone. Is this? Okay, everyone, you're pointing, telling me to look at this, and what I've got is a blank screen. So I'm going to need one of you to live mic or something for me. Oh no, there it is. It's come back, but I've still only got. It just says there's a problem with the chat. We've got someone online offering, and
Isabella said, "Be aware of the good soil for growth."
There you go. Good. One of the things, thank you. So one of the things that I ponder is why this parable? Why does this parable get an explanation? There are so many other parables that are so strange in our context. Why does this one get an explanation? But anyway, good. Thank you, everyone. I'm hoping that you're pondering and wondering and that it's opening things for you. Now we're going to hear Jesus' explanation. Ross is going to read the rest of the passage for us. And it doesn't mean that if you were thinking something different to what comes out that you're wrong. I want you to understand that this is an author's interpretation, perhaps. Mind you, it does turn up in all 3 of the Synoptic Gospels, which tells us that maybe these are words that are close to what Jesus was saying. Thank you.
Verse 18. Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the words of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in the heart. This is what was sown on the path. As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet such a person has no root, but endures only for a while. And when trouble or persecution arises on account of the word, that person immediately falls away. As for what was sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the lure of wealth choke the word, and it yields nothing. But as for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and another 30. In this is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you, Ross. Look, our tendency, I'll admit it. I think, as I shared in my news and notes little note, I have the inner voice, the inner Graham, the old sort of Sunday school youth leader, sometime in my early youth work years, Graham, kind of having this argument with me, which is, look how far look at where you've slipped to, you know? Because this is one of those passages that had really, really clear understandings, and I knew so much more back then. I was so certain of everything. And this is one of those sort of passages that in my understanding and what I grew up with, was the tendency was to concentrate on the soil. Not the seed, but the soil. And the question would be raised for me, what kind of soil am I? Am I rocky soil? Am I a pathway? Am I thorny soil? Am I good soil? I better not be bad soil. All I know is I better not be bad soil, and I better do whatever I can to ensure I need to spend more time in quiet time. I need to spend more time in prayer. I need to put more money in the plate. I've got to make sure that I'm good soil. And what I've come to learn is that standpoint isn't really kind of helpful, because it has a starting place of fear. There's this kind of fear of of slipping. The other side of it, which I think is even worse, and I've been guilty of this in my past, is not what kind of soil am I, but what kind of soil are you? And the risk, of course, there is judgmentalism. It's about making determinations about other people's place or situation or circumstances or position or standing with God. Oh, we all know what they're like. It creates this, you know the language, they've fallen away. Or I've heard this phrase even just, people of no faith. Unbelievers, backsliders. It creates this real us and them sense of God. We're in the us, we've got it right, we understand it, we've accepted it, we're the good soil, we're growing, we're fertilised, we're doing really well. And take a look at all the other people, the poor soil, the thorny soil, the rocky soil, the pathway soil. And it creates this real us and them. And that's how it sounds outside of these walls when it's shared that kind of way. Of course, fear, is a sign of a lack of love. Perfect love drives out all fear. So when you let fear be your driver and your motivator, you've missed the love of God. Or the antidote, if you like, to fear is love. And the antidote to judgmentalism is grace. Learning how to live with difference. Learning to see the beauty of another rather than their faults. That's the little voice work I've had to do over a number of decades now. And what I've come to learn with passages like this is not to start with the soil, but to start with the sower. Because the sower, as some people have already pondered and wondered and shared, the story of the sower is of a generous, abundant, carefree, almost careless sower. The seeds can fall anywhere. And the sower doesn't seem to be too upset about that. They don't get a broom out and try and sweep up all the seeds that have fallen on the path. They don't pull up all the thorns. The sower doesn't count the cost. This is not a transactional activity. I will only sow seeds if you produce. I will only sow where I can reap. That's not the mindset of this sower. I wonder if that's how you see God. Where the seeds of the kingdom can fall anywhere. And regardless of the outcome of what is sown, I'm presuming the sower comes back again next year and sows again. And the question that gets raised for me, another question that gets raised for me out of this passage, is maybe I'm not meant to focus too much on the soil as such. But maybe if I'm being drawn into the kingdom of God, maybe I need to start seeing myself not as soil but as a sower. If I'm joining in with what God's on about in the world around me, then maybe I need to start seeing myself as a sower and not a seed. Sorry, a sower and not soil. So the question becomes, are we generous and abundant and carefree with the words, the seeds of the kingdom? Or do we sit back and count the cost? Or only feel like we're going to hand it out where it's deserved, or where it will reap, or where plants will grow, or where a crop will grow? Do we make judgments about people and say, no, well, you know what, it's not worth sowing seed there. Or we've tried it once, didn't work, bad luck. The challenge for me here is, how do we be abundant and generous I wonder if part of the mindset of the sower, maybe it's not in the story, I don't know, I'm going a bit beyond the barriers here, but I wonder if the hope is that the soil might change over time, given the right seeds, given the right conditions. I'm asking you a question. Have you ever been able to plant something where previously you weren't able to? And what did you have to do to be able to do that?
It's different seed.
Tried different seed, Yeah. Try a different seed in the same spot. Pardon, sorry? Improve the soil. So fertilise the soil. Till it. Turn it over. Add some, whatever it is you need to add. I think lime works in some places. I don't know. I've heard that somewhere. But you'll know that soil is able to be improved, and it comes through care and love. I suppose another question I have is, have you ever had a plant die in one spot but thrive in another? Yeah, definitely. So I see these as words. I see this as kind of like, for us as sowers, that the message for us is not to make judgments. Sure, okay, sometimes you need to make a judgment about where the soil's at, but then not let that be a barrier or a boundary, but let it be a place of hope and freedom and abundance and grace and generosity. And yes, we are called through this parable to be aware of our own soil, to tend it and to cultivate it and to fertilise our own soil, the soil of our own lives. I want to be good soil. I'm sure you do too. But this morning's word for me, and I'm sharing this with you, is that rather than letting fear or judgment determine what value the soil has, I'm encouraging us to join with the sower. And as Brad said, maybe the thing is here, I heard you say it, sometimes you've got to be prepared to change the seed. Think hard about what the words of the kingdom are. What are the seeds and the words of the kingdom? Be generous with them. Be carefree with them. Turn your words into acts. Turn belief into faith. Let your acts and your words be drenched in hope and in love. That's how soil changes. That's how lives change. That's how seeds of the kingdom grow. Let anyone with ears to hear listen and hear. And anyone with a heart to move, may you act. Amen. We're going to sing again. This is a song that will lead us into communion this morning as we gather at your table.